I want to say thank you for the blessed opportunity again to be here. It is so good to be able to have sister institutions. As I said yesterday, when you talk size, you compare. When you talk sports, you compete. But when you talk ministry, you cooperate. And we are in existence as Christian institutions for His glory, for His cause. Doxologically, we are alive to His glory. Soteriologically, we are to fulfill the Great Commission. And every single believer, shoulder to shoulder, putting that to work. And we are so thankful. Then our heart beats with our brother who shared the request for his father. Many of us know people with brain tumors, and those just came from being with a pastor who has cancer. His body became all swollen. Just a young man. And we have a faculty wife who has a tumor in the middle of her brain, an inoperable tumor. They cannot have a biopsy because whatever they do, she will lose either sight, short-term vision, there'll be paralysis. So we're just waiting on God for Him to show Himself mighty. And fortunately, these bodies are just temporary. We'll be putting on that which is eternal before long. And then, as I have been involved in almost 22 years in a Christian college, I can sympathize with administrators and certainly can sympathize with your president in the weight that would be on his shoulders. Whenever you take the top of a flow chart in any institution, whether it's a pastoral role or where, there's a target on you. And you need to pray very, very clearly for your leadership. And I know how crucial it is. I did not come out of a Christian heritage, so I don't have a praying family. Thank the Lord, others have gotten saved in the family. But I didn't have a godly grandmother, godly mom and dad who would uphold in prayer that way. And that's a great loss. Those of you who have praying parents and Christian parents, you thank God for that. But you pray for the staff administration in this generation, a pluralistic society. But the only thing not acceptable in pluralism in the United States is Christianity and the acceptance of the absolute. So you pray as this institution keeps the focus in that way. Then there are always discipline problems. Of course, a student body like you, I know that doesn't happen here. I looked at you yesterday and I thought, this is a perfect group. I know the dean's office probably is like the Maytag repairman, sitting lonely with nothing to do because all of you are spirit-filled and living with that absolute surrender day by day. But Northland is not that way. We have many, many sinners. And so consequently, we have many problems. I was in church Wednesday night a couple of weeks ago, and Dr. Sam Horn tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Come back, I need to talk to you." And I go at the back. He said, "Did you hear about the bears?" I said, "No." I said, "I heard somebody got some pictures." He said, "No, it wasn't pictures. They had him in the dorm." And I said, "What?" One of the guys was jogging. He came through the woods, and he heard this and turned, and it was a mother bear, and he looked, and there was a baby cubs that were squeaking. So he ran to the dorm, told his roommate. His roommate said, "Where are they?" So these bold idiots go out and get these cubs and bring them in the dorm and get pictures. Then put them in the trunk of their car, these intelligent beings. And Sam said, "Do you want to get involved in this?" I said, "No, my stupid meter broke. It's not taking any readings. And I'm going to say the wrong thing." And so anyway, we called the DNR to see what to do. And these boys, fortunately, they were doing it out of ignorance. Anybody who knows mama bears, you know very well that was a very idiotic thing to do. And then, of course, the other major discipline thing was some boys during deer season were skinning a deer in the shower. And because they like to get these deer, they'll shoot them and then they'll skin them. And I said, "No, back on the trees, back let's do it back in the woods. Let's not be doing that in the shower. They cut it up, and then they say, Doc, come over. And they have this deer cut up, and they're roasting it outside on a fire, and like cavemen. We have sinners. We have sinners on our hands. But we do send greetings from Northland to you. The two thinkers we have up there send greetings. Genesis chapter 37. I'm going to preach a different type of a message today than I did yesterday. Although I think when we look at the pressures and problems that we're dealing with, when you face many of difficulties in life, some of you have never faced any yet. Philippians 4:13 is a powerful promise to claim, I can do all things. I can. That is the fact of our confidence. Do all things, the fullness of our confidence. Through Christ, our focus of our confidence, who strengthens me, the force of our confidence. And when you claim Philippians 4:13 today and you look, say, maybe you weaken to a point where you don't know exactly what is going to happen. You come to a point of absolute surrender and say, God, I rest on you and I wait on you. Genesis 37, as I said, a different type of a message than I would normally preach. But I felt this morning it might be good to share some of the things, some of you going out as graduates, some of you freshmen who have just come in and are finishing your first year. You all have dreams. Dreams of what you want to become. And chapter 37 and verse 5, I'll take this phrase and then build around this phrase. It says, and Joseph dreamed a dream. And he told it his brethren, and they hated him yet the more. Joseph dreamed a dream. How does a dream become a reality? Now, you may dream of becoming a missionary where the gospel has never been heard. You may dream of being a godly father one day, a godly husband, a mother who is raising a godly child for this generation. Maybe your goal is to become a medical doctor. Use that for God's glory, or go into law for His glory. But you know one thing, your dream is to do what you believe God would have you to do in life. But dreams don't happen just because you dream. Some of you who are graduating very shortly have dreams, I'm sure, of your next phase of life. Joseph's dream showed him that some way, somehow, he was going to be in a great position of leadership. The fact that his brothers would bow to him, and then another dream that even mom and dad would bow to him, indicated that he would be in an extremely high position of authority in this world. But yet he was in a dysfunctional home. You want to know if God can use someone from a dysfunctional family? Study the life of Joseph and study the family of Jacob. And you will see that was an extremely dysfunctional family. But God finds a 17-year-old boy with a heart for him in this dysfunctional family. Now let's go back up to verse 2 of chapter 37. These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph being 17 years old. Note this 17-year-old boy was feeding the flock with his brethren. And the lad was with the sons of Bilhah and with the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought unto his father their evil report. And Israel loved Joseph more than all his children. He was a son of his old age and made him a coat of many colors. Now, Joseph had a high purpose that God had for him in life. This dress didn't just indicate Dad going down to St. Vincent one day and see a deal on this coat and said, I'm going to bring this home for my boy. That he had very unique dress, indicated position. And by the way, I believe that dress also indicated purity. You remember that story of David's son and that half sister, where Jonadab had a friend, or Amnon had a friend whose name was Jonadab, and Jonadab counseled Amnon into a physical relationship with his half-sister. And she cried and said, "What shall I do now that I have lost its purity?" Because she had a coat of many colors, which indicated her purity. I think one of the reasons Joseph's brothers hated him so much, not only about progenitorship going his way, but also the purity that he had in his life. But let's take up from there. We know that story. We know that Joseph was sold by his brothers. How was this dream going to happen? His brothers, wicked people out there working out in the field, see Joseph come and said, "Oh, here comes the dreamer. Let's see about his dream." And they said, "Let's kill him." And Reuben said, "No, let's not kill him. Let's sell him." Wouldn't that, if you came home from college and your brothers had everything you owned out in the yard and grinning, and they said, "While you were down at Clearwater, we sold you to Cuba," would you have a tendency to feel rejected? What would you be thinking? Well, Joseph is sold by his brothers, and there goes the dream. How does a dream become a reality? We'll pick up the story in chapter 39, and I'm hurrying through this because I realize I have just about 20-some minutes left, and I will be very conscious of that time. Let's pick up the story in 39. We know that he was sold by the brethren. We know that he was hated by his brethren. And now he comes as a slave in chapter 39. And Joseph was brought down to Egypt. And Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him of the hands of the Ishmaelites, which brought him down thither. And the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man. And he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. The master saw the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made him to prosper in his hand. And Joseph found grace in his sight, and served him, and made him an overseer of his house. And all that he had, he put into his hand. Now Joseph came with this character. He was given position. He was given priority. He was put in prominence. He became very popular. He was in a permissive society with parental absence. And from a human standpoint, every reason in the world to be bitter. And yet, he never showed a bitterness. The pattern that Joseph had in his life, he determined never to conform to evil or to conceal evil, never to contend, and never to complain. You don't see these patterns in Joseph's life at all, of contending and complaining. Now he is put there, raised to prominence. And not only did he have popularity and position, he was of excellent physique. It said down here in verse 6, "And he left all that he had in Joseph's hand, and knew not aught he had, save the bread which he did eat. And Joseph was a goodly person and well favored." In other words, he was of an excellent physique. We see that same description of Rachel earlier in Genesis, that she was well favored. That is, of excellent physique, beautiful physical presence. Now, Joseph was being set up for something here. The question is, was his dream going to become a reality? Because Joseph was about to face the most difficult temptation that a young man could face in life. We see down here in verse 7, "And it came to pass after these things, that his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph and said, 'Lie with me.'" Now, what did she mean? Did she come and say, "Joe, I haven't lied in a long time. Let's go downtown tonight. You lie about your age and I'll lie about my weight"? I think if you study the context here, you're going to see that Joseph, as a physical specimen, as a 17-year-old boy, was being offered something that is probably the most difficult thing for a young man to face. Most difficult temptation at that age and stage of life. The question, was his dream going to become a reality? How did it happen? Number one, I'll give you three things quickly. How does a dream become a reality from God's perspective? Number one, Joseph had conviction before he faced a crisis. You had better know what you believe and why you believe what you believe before you get into a situation that is going to cause you to compromise and cause you to lose the dream. And I hope your dream is something that is going to be lasting, not just something that is temporary. Some of you hockey fans remember Travis Waugh. I'm not talking Patrick Waugh, the goalie. I'm talking Travis Waugh, the college hockey player. Travis Waugh had a dream from his childhood to play for Boston University. And Travis was coached by his father through youth hockey, into high school hockey, into junior hockey. And out of junior hockey, Travis Waugh was drafted by Boston University. Travis Waugh's dream became a reality. The music was playing, teams were warming up, and then it was time to begin the game, and Travis Waugh was a starter for Boston University. Played that wing position. In 11 seconds, some of you remember the headlines in USA Today and the headlines in Sports Illustrated, the 11-second dream. 11 seconds into his first shift for Boston University, he goes into the boards, slumps to the ice. The coaches, his dad, who was on the bench with the coaches at that time, ran out on the ice. The dad, kidding his son, says, "Son, get up, there's a game to play." And the son says, "Dad, I can't move." And the second thing he told his dad, he said, "Dad, I made it." Now you'll see NHL games, if they ever start playing again. You'll see Travis Waugh in a wheelchair on many of these NHL games because he is going to games. The friends with whom he played there and practiced have him come into the games, and he's on the bench. You'll see him in his wheelchair. And I read an article recently where Travis Waugh says, I'm dreaming, I'm going down the ice, and I'm ready to slap a shot in the net. And he said, I wake up, and he said, reality stinks. His dream lasted 11 seconds. I hope your dream is a dream that is more eternal than that. But how does that dream become a reality? Conviction before crisis. Joseph knew what he believed before he got into the situation that would have caused him to lose that dream. All Joseph had to do was to submit to that temptation. And all of a sudden, his dream would be undone. You have a dream to be a pastor. Do you have a dream to be a godly leader? You cannot do your own thing and expect to have that dream become a reality. All Joseph would have had to do was say yes to that temptation. I'll guarantee you, these world leaders didn't marry ugly ducklings. This woman who was tempting Joseph must have been a beauty herself. Now let me ask you this. How determined are you to do what God wants you to do? Are you willing to say no to that which is tempting to you? A friend can get you to do something that no one else can get you to do. You girls come home from volleyball practice, a knock comes at your door when you were in high school, and you open the door, there's a man standing there and said, "Hi, I'm a pervert. And I have a van. I'd like you to go necking and petting with me this afternoon. Would you go?" "Wait, I'll have to ask my ma." "I don't think so. You'd slam that door shut and you put the night lock on. Mom, there's a pervert on the porch. Call the cops." But let's say that pervert's a student here at Clearwater. But he's called a friend. And he starts with some wooing, and then next thing you know, it goes to the progression of something happened you never dreamed would ever happen, the loss of your purity. Oh, that dream to go down the aisle in a white wedding dress, indicating purity. Really? You guys come home from soccer practice in high school, knock comes at the door. Guy's standing there. "I'm from Bush Brewing Company. I'm an alcoholic. I have a van full of beer. I'm looking for teens to go drinking with me because we have a goal to get numbers of alcoholics right out of this area. Would you go?" "No way." But I have sat many times on the platform speaking at commencements at Christian high schools, and the A principal leans over to me. There's 4 guys not marching tonight on the senior trip, or so, and they got wine coolers, and I hear the stories. It didn't happen from Bush Brewing Company knocking at the door. It happened from a friend who said, "Hey, come here." Do you have conviction before you face a crisis? Do you have determination regarding your purity in this matter? Christian college students. And you know what? This area, physical, is very, very tempting. You never hear messages on premarital alcoholism. When's the last time you heard a preacher get up and say, "Don't you drink before you get married? You won't need to until you're married." Ever hear a message on premarital cocaine? Don't you be snorting coke till you're married. God has saved that for marriage because He knows that is when you will need it. No, but you will hear messages on premarital sex. Why? Because God didn't design our bodies for alcohol and cocaine, but He did design our bodies for that physical relationship. Remember one time one of our administrators said, "Lest you have some time to come and meet." We went and met. Said there are phone calls being run up. And we tracked the phone calls. We tracked the phone calls and got the police involved because we couldn't subpoena phone records without the police. So we got the police involved. And here's the police car on our campus. And we tracked down young married students some time back. And I had to go into the meeting. And this young guy and his wife were just weeks from graduating. And they said, "Has this been a problem in your past?" "Yes, I got into pornography in high school." Never escaped. Never escaped. Hey, gang, dream all you want. If you do not have a conviction before you face a crisis, you're going to find yourself completely under the control of Satan's influence, not finding God's will. Do what you're going to do. So often the right thing, that when a temptation comes along, you'll do the right thing automatically. I was called by Iron Mountain High School. It's a high school just north of us, to come and speak to the high school. The coach was not a Christian, but he was familiar with us. He called. He said, "Les, could you come and speak to our football team? We're going down for the Class C Michigan State Championship." And he said, "I'd like you to come and speak to our team." So the guys, I went up to the place. They said, "Meet us at the gym. We'll meet in the locker room." So the guys came off a muddy, rainy practice field late in October. They're in Upper Michigan. And they came in with their mudded uniforms and sat down in that locker room. And I spoke on how do you win championships. And I said, championships are not won by dreaming of banners and trophies. That if you're the quarterback and you are under center and you are dreaming about a banner or a trophy, I said, you look like you play for the Detroit Lions. You don't know where that ball is going. I was in Michigan, so I had to pick on the Lions. They are getting better now with a Uper coach. But I said, if you're the wide receiver and you're thinking banner, trophy, you're not going anywhere. I said, championships are won one play at a time. I said, you have one thing to think about at that time, and that is that play. Then the next play is the most important thing happening at that time. And I said, next thing you know, there's a banner. Next thing you know, there's a trophy. Because your mind is focused on one play at a time. In soccer, it's one possession at a time. It's not a banner. It's one possession at a time. Then I switched. How do you become a champion in life? I said, it's one choice at a time. And I said, you guys have a lot of choices to face in life. And I said, you become a champion in life, one choice at a time. And you Christians here at Clearwater Christian, or whether it's Northline Baptist Bible College, you'll get where you go one choice at a time. Joseph had a major choice to make. Secondly, I must move here because I only have 5 minutes left. Number 2, he had a holy fear of God and a fervent love for God. Joseph knew what he believed before he got in that situation. And you better know what you believe and why you believe it. Secondly, he had a holy fear of God and a fervent love for God. Look there in verse 8. But he refused, in chapter 39 and verse 8, and said unto his master's wife, Behold, the master wotteth not what is with me in the house, and hath committed all that he hath to my hand. And there is none greater in the house than I, neither hath he kept back anything from me but thee, because thou art his wife. How can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? Yesterday I preached from Paul's life pattern for us. And one of the motivations that Paul had was the fear of God. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 7, Noah moved with fear. Now we find Joseph in this situation realized parents were gone, no one was around, but God. Do we love God and do we fear God? Greatest preservation. I wish we had one requirement besides the academic requirements to get into Christian colleges. I wish we had one requirement, and that is a guarantee that every enrolling student feared God. You would hardly need a dean's area then, because you just give out parking permits and off-campus permits and so on. But if it was only a guarantee that each one of us as staff and faculty and students feared God. No dad's not there, no mommy's not there, no others do not see, but God sees, and Joseph knew that. But he loved him supremely. How do you get that? The Word of God, the worship of God, and meditation on the works of God. Young men, build that into your life. Young women, build that into your life. Wake up in the morning knowing you're in God's presence. And then last of all, Joseph had a sincere loyalty to authority over him. He said, there is none in this house greater than I, and he has kept nothing back from me but you. I cannot violate that which has been entrusted to me. I will not be disloyal to authority over me. How protective that is. If you could just learn when you sign an agreement coming into a college, you sign an agreement. This is what I will do. This is how I will live. And I will not be disloyal to God-placed authority. I was in El Paso, Texas. A lady came up crying. She said, I'm in my late 30s. She said, but in my high school days, I argued with my dad. She said, I screamed at him. The last argument we had, I screamed at him. And I said, I hate you, and I wish you would drop dead. She said, my dad collapsed right in front of me. She said, my dad literally died right there. She said, that I was a senior in high school. She said, that's over 20 years ago. And that's like a weight on my chest. I wish I could have Daddy back for 5 minutes and hold him and say, would you forgive me? I love you, Daddy. But she said, I can't. She said, please, please tell young folks to love their parents. It's just up here in Knoxville, Tennessee, and a very well-to-do couple came and got an appointment, and they were in tears sharing the fact that they had found their son hanging in his bedroom closet. Graduating senior, this time of the year. Said, Mom went up and screamed, didn't wonder why the boy didn't come down to breakfast. She screamed. Dad said, I ran upstairs, said, I took that boy off the hook. He had put it on a hook and slumped down in. Said the body was cold and stiffening. He said, I hugged him. Said, son, I love you. Said, but too late. Then the dad said, what would you tell people that this would not happen to them? Here's my advice. Hug them while they're still warm. Say I love you while it can still be felt. Give out flowers while they can still be smelled. Don't wait to fill funeral parlors with what ought to be given now. I'm a Finn. I mean, Scandinavians, we don't show much emotion unless we can't find a wrench we're looking for. We were not known for hug-a-bugs. In our home, I was the last of 9 kids. We were all born in the living room. We didn't do hug-a-bugs. You know, I mean, like I'd be gone 6 months. And I'd come home, Dad would say, hello. And that was intimate. But you get Italians. Man, kid goes off to camp for 5 days and he's coming home Saturday. Huge banners, welcome home Mario. And big pots of spaghetti and everybody getting hugged and kissed. And man, us Finns have a hard time. We're standing like Germans, you know, like this. No frontal hugging at all. And so I went to my dad. Last time I saw my dad alive, didn't know it'd be the last time, but I went to Dad and I hugged him. I kissed him on the cheek, said, Dad, I love you. And fortunately, that's the last communication my dad had from me. That was not the norm. But let me challenge you. Make sure the last communique that you have with those who love you most and those who you would direct your love, or to whom you would direct your love, are words of love and gratitude and thank you. If you're sitting in a position of being disloyal to God-placed authority, you're in dangerous ground. Of course, you know the rest of the story. Joseph rises to prominence. His brothers come looking for food, not knowing it's Joseph. And yet they're bowing. They're bowing. Dad comes and bows. The dream of reality. Years later. One choice at a time. And Joseph dreamed a dream. What's in your life right now that's killing your potential for what could be? And say, God, forgive me for not loving you. Forgive me for not fearing you. And God, let there be such a love in my heart for you that which would grieve you would displease me. And I would stay away. No stains on tomorrow's pages. Say, by God's grace, I want to let God have His way in me. Father, have your way in this student body. Thank you for their choosing to be in a Christian institution. May they have a heart to love you and to fear you and to obey you. And then give them a ministry to their authority. And as they would show love and obedience, I pray in Jesus' name, amen.